Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, and I want to welcome you to the show where we share some wit and wisdom and some wonderful experts to help women navigate career and life challenges, and most importantly, to know that you're not alone. Each week, through our conversations, we share resources to encourage women to be more confident, resilient, and brave in their career and life choices. And we bring this to you streaming live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time on the E360 TV network, which you can find on your favorite streaming services like Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and the like. And we also go live simultaneously on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you prefer to listen to your favorite shows, we're also on all the podcast channels. So if something inspires you today and you want more, please subscribe to your favorite channel. Leave us a comment and share your favorite episode so we can create more ripples in the world for women. Are you a working mom? There are many of you out there. Have you ever missed a milestone event? Maybe a game or a recital that was important to your child? And if so, you may have experienced mom guilt, and you are not alone. This week, I bring you an expert on the subject. Catherine Wild is a homeschooling mom of three, founder of Soul Care Mom, and the best-selling author of Reclaiming Your Inner Sparkle. As a life coach for moms and creator of the Vibrant Mom Life membership, Catherine is on a heartfelt mission to help moms find their calm and unshakable confidence in life and at work through self-care. Catherine has guided thousands of women out of survival mode. Do you recognize that? Survival mode. Helping them release mom guilt and create a life and career they love while being the moms they aspire to be. So let's get right into it. Welcome, Catherine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. I have been looking forward to this conversation because I know that a lot of my clients are moms. They are also very busy career women, and this thought about mom guilt permeates their minds a lot. So let's just start by kind of defining what exactly is mom guilt and what can we do when we feel mom guilt coming up?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And mom guilt, encompasses such a wide spectrum, and it's something I believe most moms have experienced in some shape or form at some point on their journey. But mom guilt is this feeling of doubt, worry, insecurity that many of us experience about our choices and actions as moms. It can manifest in a variety of ways, such as feeling guilty for, taking time for yourself, feeling like you're a bad parent, right? Depending on what's going on in your life in that season, feeling guilty for not being able to do all of the things that we feel like we should be doing, and the pressure that comes with that. And mom guilt can also stem from external, pressure, societal expectations, pressure to maintain the perfect home, cook healthy meals, raise well-behaved children, while also juggling your career and other responsibilities. And that pressure to say yes to all the things, also known as people pleasing, right? So mom guilt can be so overwhelming, and you may even feel guilty about wanting to let go of mom guilt because as a society, we've kind of been taught that feeling guilt and worry when it comes to parenting is part of good parenting. So, mom guilt can show up in so many ways. So maybe it's that emotional tug of war you feel like in the early morning hours when you're leaving for work and you're missing, waking up with your kids, or that pride mixed with guilt when you get updates about your kids' milestones, like you were mentioning, right, while you're at work, or you miss out on something because you're at work. Um, or that heart-wrenching choices just between balancing your commitments in your career and being present for the school plays, the soccer practice, all the other activities, or coping with exhaustion at the end of the day, right? And how it impacts your family time. So
Mm.
yeah, so let's talk
Mhm.
about how we can navigate it. So first of all, simply starting to notice when mom guilt is coming up for you. Are there certain situations where mom guilt comes up for you regularly? And as you bring awareness to the feeling of mom guilt, start to explore where this idea might have come from and if it's actually serving you, right? Is it empowering you and helping you to be the mom you want to be? More often than not, it's this idea that we've been given, and we've accepted, but it isn't really in alignment of how we want to show up for our kids or in our career or anything, right? So that's why it doesn't feel good in our bodies. So if that's the case, yeah, and if that's the case and what you're experiencing, what you're thinking is no longer serving you, take a moment to just lovingly explore a more empowering story, which to me was such a powerful realization that I could do that, right? I could become aware of my thoughts and I could shift my own story. So, what would be a thought that would help you to embrace motherhood and show up in the way that you want to with your kids and in your career? And so if you're starting to, yeah, if you're
Love
starting
that.
to just
Yeah.
wonder about what this might look like. So maybe you have a limiting belief that's saying I must do everything perfectly or I'm a bad mother. Something more empowering could be I'm doing my best. My best is enough. It's okay to make mistakes. Perfection isn't required to be a wonderful mother. Or maybe you're thinking, I should enjoy every moment of motherhood. And maybe something more empowering would be, it's okay to have tough days and acknowledge the hard times. It doesn't make me ungrateful, it makes me human. Um, or maybe you're struggling with feeling, angry or frustrated at the end of the day with your kids. And your belief is, a good mother doesn't feel frustrated or angry with her children. You might shift that to feeling a range of emotions, including frustration, is natural. And how I handle things, how I handle these feelings is what matters, right? So how can I be there for myself as I have these big feelings? Or yeah,
I love how you're doing the reframing
yeah,
for each one of those very normal human feelings that we have. Whether we're moms or not, we have those
yes.
feelings, and learning how to recognize them and then reframe them, shift the way we think about things. That's so helpful. I really love the way you did that, Catherine.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I know that you're so passionate about helping moms feel calm and confident in motherhood. Tell us a little bit about your journey. What's that been like? And how did you get into helping women release mom guilt and feel more empowered?
Thank you for asking that. So yeah, so like Maria mentioned, I have three kiddos and we homeschool. But after, the birth of my first child, the reality of motherhood began to sink in for me. And I loved being a mom. But at the same time, I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I had always dreamed of becoming a mother. So, I was really giddy, when I found out I was going to be a mom and it was a dream come true. But, soon after, the sleep deprivation set in, the anxiety came in, and basically your life gets turned upside down overnight in this really beautiful but also kind of overwhelming way. And so, to be completely honest, I was exhausted, I was overwhelmed, and I felt like I was just constantly failing. And as our family grew, life became more and more chaotic. But I had hope. I had hope that it could be different. And so I began to pay attention. And I noticed that when I did something kind for myself, I cared for myself in some way, I started to feel better. And I started finding these pockets of calm in the chaos of motherhood. The job of being a mom is really precious and really important. We are loving and guiding the next generation. But at the same time, it can feel lonely. We might feel all alone in our struggles. We might feel guilt and shame around not doing things perfectly. And we don't realize that we don't have to stay trapped in this pattern of shame and guilt. And when I began to realize that I wasn't alone in struggling with these things, with caring for myself, with feeling lost in motherhood and the overwhelm and guilt and shame that can come with all of it, I felt called to share with other moms, so I started to share my own journey and the resources that were helping me to release the limiting beliefs and shift patterns that were holding me back from really enjoying motherhood. And so now I get to help women find themselves again in motherhood and carve out time to do the things they love without the mom guilt while being the moms that they want to be. And I feel so honored to get to do that work every day. And to be honest, there's still days that I feel less than calm, less than confident. Mom guilt comes up. And that's been a big part of my journey as well, right? Allowing myself to lean into that, accepting that life is messy and imperfect. And it's okay to feel however you are feeling, and paying attention to how you're feeling so that you can care for yourself in the moment has been really powerful for me.
Mm, that's so important. And I love what you said, that even now, and you've been, your kiddos are they're not babies anymore. They're a little older, right?
Right.
Yet you still can fall into that trap of feeling the shame and guilt, that pattern you talked about. I love that. Thank you for being so transparent and honest. Those of us who are coaches need coaches too. We
Yes.
we are still on our journey. It's never ending, and we all need the kind of support that we surround ourselves, hopefully, with people who can be supportive of us in our journeys. So working moms tend to have a lot on their plates, don't we? Let's explore how this can turn into burnout for a moment. What are some of the signs that we're in a state of burnout or we're approaching burnout? And let's talk about the significance of recognizing that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, burnout is a big topic. It's the state of physical, emotional, mental exhaustion that can be caused by being under stress for a long period of time. And it can show up in different ways. So maybe you always feel tired, right? Chronic fatigue. Maybe you have a hard time falling asleep, getting a full night's rest. Maybe you feel forgetful or have trouble concentrating. Maybe you feel high levels of anxiety. Maybe you notice that you get sick really often. Those are just some of the signs that you may be burnt out, living in survival mode. And noticing and paying attention to when we're feeling less than our best is important in helping us to create a shift to, from where we are to where we want to be, or how we want to feel. But sometimes that can be hard to see when we are in burnout, right? Because it's been a part of our experience for a long time, and we kind of just live there. Kind of, if you think of like how your refrigerator is on all the time, it's running in the background and there's like this steady hum, but we don't always notice it, right? Because it's just become part of our everyday. And we kind of assume that's just how it is. And so when it stops running and you notice the silence, or if you are a mama with like young ones, babies, maybe, it makes me think of like that white noise machine. When my oldest was born, we really focused on helping her sleep well. And we had a sound machine that made a sort of static sound. And I got so used to it when it was on that when it turned off, the sense of relief just washed over me, and the silence just was like this big hug. And I didn't realize how much my mind was having to do and process that sound continuously, right? So often the things that have become our normal, we have to bring this awareness, this curiosity and gentle awareness, so we can start to create a change in ways that feel good to us. So we can talk about, how to start to create that shift, if you like.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do that. And what was so it resonated so highly with me that I loved your analogy of the refrigerator, and that steady hum until it stops, and then we notice
Yeah.
that there's something that has kind of taken our attention, that has, it's been like background noise,
Yeah.
and we didn't even recognize it as a feeling of overwhelm or, a lot of, negative thoughts in our heads, that
Right.
that drone of negative thinking. So let's absolutely talk about,
Yeah.
let's dig into this a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do it. So, one of the best ways to be intentional is to be intentional about how we fill our days, right? Um, And one of my favorite analogies, let's picture this for a moment. So imagine a glass jar, and the glass jar, it represents your life, and we can even have it just represent our day for this example. But you have three types of objects to fill this glass jar with. You have rocks, pebbles, and sand. And the rocks are the most valuable things in your life, right? Your values. These are the things that are most important to you, that bring you joy, your family, your friends, your values, your passions. The pebbles are the things that you need to do each day, right? Your responsibilities at home and at work, the things you need to do for yourself, your children. And the sand is everything else. It's the filler, including scrolling our phones, right? Or binge watching the newest show on Netflix, or just the things that we fill our time with. And I'd love to talk about just energy for a moment too, noticing the things that give us energy and the things that drain our energy. Helps us to make choices that help us live in alignment with our best selves. So, of course, it's impossible to only do things that give us energy, right? There's this ebb and flow, and life is filled with situations and challenges, some things that are energy rich and some things that feel more draining. And so, noticing this helps us to reflect on where we're spending our time. For example, one of the things that can drain my energy is scrolling on my phone, and I can just get distracted and lost in that. But then on the other hand, something that, helps me, that gives me energy is being in nature or taking time to read or taking a bath or painting. So actively making that choice to do the things that give me energy versus the things that are draining my energy can, shift my entire mood and mindset. And so coming back to that glass jar analogy, right? Notice where you're spending your time. What's filling your jar first? Are there any shifts that you want to intentionally create? You can, imagine that when you don't prioritize your days in your life with the most important things to you, we end up just living by default. And instead of on purpose and with intention, and our day and our jar just gets quickly filled up with sand, and there's no room left for the rocks, the meaningful things in your life, right? And when we're living by default, we're often missing out on caring for ourselves, on nourishing ourselves, and the result is often burnout. So we want to start by adding the rocks into our day first. This will help you to feel your best and help you move towards and truly embody your goals and your vision for both your work life and your home life. So, I invite everyone listening to, grab their calendar and start by adding space for your priorities first. And, maybe you need some time to meal prep, or you want to carve out space for movement in your day, maybe a walk around the block with your kids, whatever it is. What's important to you, and how can you begin to protect your energy? How can you bring intentionality around what you say yes to in your days, and notice when people pleasing might be coming up for you too, which is another whole topic in itself. But yeah, how can you start to be intentional around what's most important to you?
I love that analogy. It's been used for years, for
Yes.
various purposes, right? To, what are those three things that you can fill your jar with? But I love the way you've used it. So those, choosing to fill your jar, your daily jar, with rocks first, and then pebbles, and then maybe sand, maybe not sand, right? So if you
Right.
put the sand in first, I love what you said. There's no room. There's no room. You can't get the rocks in or the pebbles. So you're spending your time on the stuff that is draining your energy, doesn't matter as much to you. And when you think about that analogy and you really decide on purpose what it is you want to have in your jar first, the choice becomes, it just, for me, it just becomes so clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great story to share today. Thank you for sharing that. I love it.
Absolutely.
So, one of the things that I know you and you've alluded to it, you've talked about it already. I want to get a little deeper into it, and that's the thought of uh, or the concept of self care.
Mm.
There can be so much mom guilt around this topic, which is why self care is so important, and for us to be um, very conscious about what we do in our day to treat ourselves better. So, how can we navigate the guilt that might come up around taking care of ourselves first?
Ah, that is such a great question. Thank you for asking it. And like, self-care has been so pivotal on my journey. In motherhood, becoming a mother or a caregiver, no matter which way you're led to this task, is can be really daunting. Yet this really beautiful journey. And one thing that I learned the hard way is that you can't be the mom you want to be, really the person that you want to be, if you're living in survival mode.
Hmm.
And as a mom, I get it. It can be really hard to do all of the things that are asked of us day in and day out. We have, to have the energy we crave so we can be playful and present with our kids, to do our best to raise these resilient, confident, loving humans while, running a household, working a job, and doing everything else that you need to do. And for so long, I felt this deep sense of despair. I was convinced that I wasn't measuring up as a mom. It seemed like every tantrum, each time I felt short tempered, all the tear filled moments pointed to this inescapable conclusion that I must be defective somehow as a mom. And I believed that I was, just uniquely ill equipped for motherhood, a task that so many moms appeared to be handling flawlessly, especially from what I saw on social media, right? But I noticed something each time that I did something kind for myself, even the smallest thing, and I took care of my needs in some way, I felt better. And self care is this term that we hear often, yet its true importance, its true meaning often gets lost, amongst the daily responsibilities of motherhood. I had convinced myself that devoting my time to my needs was a luxury that I couldn't afford. It was somehow selfish. But I slowly started to realize that by neglecting myself, I was unintentionally depleting the very reservoir of energy and patience and love that I needed to be the mother I wanted to be. And of course, it wasn't this instant transformation, but it gave me this glimmer of hope. So I decided to embrace self care, to lean on my village, family, friends, other moms for support. And I started carving out moments of self care, like maybe meditating for a few minutes, or, picking up a book and reading it for a little bit, or enjoying a quiet cup of tea. And as I focused on my needs, I found that I was better able to meet my children's needs. And I discovered that when I prioritized taking care of myself, I could give more generously to those around me without feeling depleted. I could be more patient and present and loving, not despite my self care, but because of it. So maybe you're starting to really let this message sink in and you're ready to embrace self care, but there might still be some lingering beliefs about how self care isn't really important, as important as all the other things you need to do on your list. As you notice those thoughts come up, just like we did at the beginning of this chat, right? Start to get curious and notice if that story is the one that you want to continue to tell yourself. So, maybe you're having a thought that's keeping you from embracing self care, like, I have to be available for my children at all times, right? And maybe that doesn't feel so good, right? Maybe that's what's keeping you from your self care. So, maybe something more empowering could be something like taking time for myself makes me happier and a more present parent, and my children benefit from seeing me take care of my needs, right? Um, or, I have to sacrifice my personal interest for my kids. It's one or the other. That could be your belief. And you might, consider shifting and seeing what else might feel better. So maybe pursuing my interests. So sets a really beautiful example for my children, showing them the importance of caring for yourself on multiple levels and following your heart's desires, which is what I want for my kids. So, start to see what you're telling yourself and how you can begin to shift that. Yeah.
You know, I this idea of taking care of yourself first and it being an example for others, uh, and it certainly becoming a good role model for self-care for your children, but it works also in the corporate environment
Mm,
when we teach others how to treat us
yes.
by virtue of how we treat ourselves, right? So setting boundaries is a skill that works at home as well as at work, and it has to do with treating ourselves well in all aspects of our lives, not just as a mom with our kids, but as a working mom, with our teams at work, with our leadership teams, with our the teams who report into us. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I love how you said that because it really is, we teach others how to treat us. And
Yes.
something that I've found with people pleasing is that it's often my fear of how they will react, my not feeling comfortable with the big emotions, like being able to sit with my own emotions around it or theirs, whether with my kids or with other relationships, and starting to notice that was really powerful for me because I had to start, it started within, right? Like holding that space for myself for whatever came up and knowing that their feelings were theirs to experience, right? Maybe they would be disappointed because I said, no, I need to go pick up my child, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It starts, with that really deep inner work. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also being very tuned in and grounded in our values. What
Yes.
matters most to us. So if your number one value, and this is the case for me, for different reasons, because I'm not a mom. I'm a mom of many, but I'm not a mom of. I have no natural children of my own. Um, and for many of the moms I know, uh, the I just lost my train of thought. Isn't that something?
It happens to me too.
Yeah. All right. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I promise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make a point about what you just made a point about is just to emphasize that. And again, I go back to how well you teach people to reframe their thoughts
Mm.
as they're recognizing that, oh, this thought doesn't make me feel very good.
Yeah.
What do you want to think instead?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I know you've given us some examples, and I know some people are going to say when they hear self-care, I go through this all the time with my clients. You got to take care of yourself better. Well, I don't have time to go get a massage or have a spa day or have my hair or my nails done or whatever. There are so many other ways to take care
Yes.
of ourselves, and you've mentioned some of them. So let's just talk about that a little bit more. Let's let's talk about what self-care really looks like
Mm.
in everybody's in a the day in a day in the life, okay, of a busy mom, a busy working mom. What are some simple ways to bring self-care into those busy days?
I love that you brought this up because it's so true. We have this idea of what self-care is and it just
Right.
feels like overwhelming. It feels like I don't have time. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm passionate about is helping women to redefine what self-care is. It's not just another thing on your to-do list. It's actually this journey of becoming your own best friend. It's being kind to yourself and honoring your needs. And it's not about, how many spa days you take, like you were saying, or how many hours you spend at the gym, or And I'm hoping that everyone that's listening is feeling the sense of relief as you hear that, because self-care doesn't have to require a lot of time. It's actually the most effective when we can sprinkle it throughout the day. And I'm
Mm,
not saying don't say yes to the spa day, right?
right.
By all means, enjoy those moments of fun and relaxation and connection. Those times where you can get away for an extended period for yourself, those are all really beautiful. But self-care lives in the small moments of your day too. Each time that we pause and take a deep breath, each time we check in with ourselves is a moment of self care. And all of those add up throughout your day. And we end up creating this lifestyle that's anchored in a deep friendship with ourselves. And it's the ultimate gift that you can give yourself and your loved ones, because when we care for, when our needs are cared for, we show up in all of our relationships, in our interactions at work, in our home, with this full cup, right? So we have more energy, more patience, more love, everything to give. And so, where can you start to create these moments of connection with yourself? Transitions in your day, I feel, are a really great place to do that. So, anytime you're switching tasks, take a moment to check in the carpool line as you wait to pick up your child from school or before a meeting at work. Just placing your hand over your heart and asking yourself, what do I need in this moment? You know, and you give and give and give in all the areas of your life. And it's time to bring yourself into the equation too, right? When we don't attend to our needs, we end up feeling burned out and in survival mode, like we've been talking about. And it can often feel like we don't have control in our life, right? Life's happening to us instead of for us. But when we become intentional about prioritizing our needs, we find that we're able to take that control back. And we might not be able to control all the situations in our day, like whether or not your boss calls a meeting right before you need to head out to take your child to dance class, right? But we can start with caring for ourselves and our needs. And when we do that, we feel so much better. We have so much more to give. And I like to just imagine, to picture this a little bit. Imagine a leaky faucet, right? You put a cup underneath it and you walk away and you come back, and that cup is completely full, right? And it was filled up drop by drop. That's a lot like creating a life infused with self-care. Each single drop of self-care that we practice throughout the day, it helps to fill that cup. So every time you pause and take that deep breath, or you get up from your desk and you stretch, or every time you stop to enjoy a cup of tea or go stand in the sunshine, every time we stop and find something we're grateful for, every time we check in with ourselves and say, hey, how are you doing? Just as you would to a friend. What is it that you need? And each moment of connection is this drop in your cup, filling it bit by bit. So
Yeah.
it's really this beautiful way to fill your cup throughout the day.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. You know what? I think as I'm listening to you talk, it occurs to me that it's how we think about self care. It's how we think about those times that we just take a moment, take a deep breath, take a break, have a cup of tea. If we think about those, so often we do those things
Mm.
automatically, kind of on remote control, right?
Yes.
I do this often. I come into my office in the morning and I have a cup of tea with me, a big cup
Mm.
of tea, and I'll just sip it, but I'm not terribly conscious about when I'm sipping it. And that's something this conversation has changed the way I'm going to sip my tea from now on. Just being conscious that if I stop for a moment, take a breath, take a sip, I love my tea,
Yeah.
enjoy it, savor the flavor of it and the moment, and then go on. It doesn't have to take, what is that, 20 seconds to do that?
I
But if
love
we think of it differently, if we think of it like, okay, this is my moment, this is for me, that's a drop in your cup.
Absolutely. And I love that because it was something you already enjoyed and you were just bringing presence to it, right? So it took,
Just bring it. That's all I'm doing.
right.
That's the difference. And
Yeah.
I just got goosies as we said that. I that's all it really takes is how we think about it. So it reminds me of one of my very favorite quotes. I say this
Mm.
very often. Dr. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yes.
So when I change the way I look and think about my cup of tea, and I think of each sip as a sip of self care, that totally changes how I proceed in my day and how many times, how many how many sips of tea do I get out of this big cup? I've never counted, but one day I will. Now that I've just said that, how many drops of tea do I put in my day of self-care?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. We're talking about tea, and you're talking about drops in a cup. I'll share this analogy that I use a lot, that might help some people. If you think of yourself as a beautiful china teacup that is beautifully painted, it's gilded in gold on the handle, and it sits on a saucer that is painted equally beautifully,
Mm.
and it's matching. And we think of every little sip of tea, every moment we take to breathe, to take a break, to say no, to honor what it is we need. Those are drops in our cup, and they fill our cup. And if we do that enough, it begins to overflow. And if
Yeah.
we keep our cup full and we give from the overflow, we'll never have an empty cup.
Absolutely. Oh, and I can just picture the beautiful china tea cup,
Yeah.
yeah, and the saucer.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an analogy that works for me. So filling our cup, we hear that all the time, but filling our cup is one thing, but what do we give from? Right? Is
Yeah.
there a straw in our cup and somebody's sipping on our all that we put in there, and it's going right back out because someone's taking it and we're
Yes.
letting them?
Right.
Or are we filling our cup, keeping ourselves filled so that we are at our best, that we're giving our best, the people around us are benefiting from our best, and we're giving from the overflow?
Yeah. Yeah, it's thinking about that, what not just the activities that are giving you energy, but the people you're surrounding yourself with too.
Right?
Like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you said this earlier. You said that you surround yourself with your village. It takes a village, doesn't it, for those of us who are caregivers in one way or another. You're a mom, I'm a caregiver for my husband. We have lots of responsibilities, and it does take a village to help us get through the day. So let's talk about how we can create a support system that helps us prioritize our self care so we're not constantly living in that survival mode that we talked about.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Mothers are, often pulled, divided between their
Yes.
home life and their responsibilities at work and everything else. And that division can really set us up for failure just because it leaves us exhausted when we try to do all the things.
Yeah.
And yeah, and one thing that you know, helps me is to bring into awareness that, sometimes we have this idea that we need to be superwoman. And I want us to start to shed that because it's not sustainable. It's this formula for burnout and it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve our kids. It doesn't serve our partner. It doesn't serve our career, right? And it's impossible to thrive when we are living on fumes, right? When that cup is empty. Um, so we want to set ourselves up to create this life that's fulfilling and sustainable so we can go beyond surviving to thriving and feel good in all the areas. And one important place to look at is, like Maria is saying, surrounding ourselves with a village, with support. Maybe this means, having a conversation with a partner and redistributing, responsibilities. Because while it's amazing that as women, we have all of these possibilities available to us, where we can embrace motherhood and we can have a robust career, right? Often the home responsibilities, not always, but often they still tend to primarily fall on the mother. So pausing and being intentional about how you can team up with your family, right? With your village and get the support that you need at home. It can be a really big game changer. The other day I was plugging in the crock pot. My daughter ran over to see what I was up to, and she helped me wash the apples and gather the coconut oil and the cinnamon and the raisins and the honey. And we made some baked apples in the crock pot. And we just set everything in there. That was it. It took minutes for us to put these simple ingredients and turn on the crock pot. And not long after, right, our home smelled amazing. There was just this warm scent of cinnamon and this hint of sweetness. And as we added those ingredients to the crock pot, I felt deeply supported by this simple kitchen tool, right? This tool was helping us to prepare a nourishing snack. And so I invite you to take a moment to look around, right, at the people that can support you, but also simply notice, like, what are the resources that you have that are available to you. You probably are surrounded by more than you may realize. So look beyond what you typically think of as support. Think outside the box a bit, and you'll find that there are so many beautiful ways you can surround yourself with loving support. And, I have noticed that who I surround myself with makes a huge difference. Some relationships are more energy giving and energy rich, and some feel more draining. And in some instances, of course, we don't have an easy choice there of who we might be surrounded with. So maybe at work, right, for example, but you do have choices in other areas of your life, like friendship groups and online communities. And I have just such a beautiful network of people that are, that surround me. And one of my favorite things about getting to do what I do is I have this community, this village of women that support and uplift each other. We hold loving space during the challenging times. We celebrate each other for the little and big wins. So if you're struggling to find, a high vibe friendships in person, it's, we live in this beautiful digital age where you can find community all over the world from wherever you are. And what I've found is that when you start surrounding yourself with this loving support, your other relationships start to transform too. So maybe, a coworker that you find challenging to be around, they might, you might start to see them in a different light, like that Wayne Dyer quote, right? When you look at things differently. Or maybe they get transferred to another department or team. Really incredible things start to happen when we start to, start with ourselves and we surround ourselves with loving support. It changes everything.
It does change everything. And I love what you said in the beginning of this little segment. It's not just the people that can support you, but the things that make your life easier. And I honestly never thought about that until you just said it. I've always thought about, the support network that we have around us, the village, as you call it. I call it our personal board of directors. But it's always been, I've always thought about it as people. And now I'm going to, again, look at it a little differently and think about the first thing that you were talking about, your crock pot. And I was thinking about, oh, my bread machine. We love fresh bread. We love the way it smells and we love the way it tastes making fresh bread in the bread machine. And I'm so grateful to have the bread machine and to have a company that I found called, um, what's it called? Prepared Pantry. Out of a family-owned business out of Idaho, I just discovered that makes bread mixes. I'm so grateful for that because I literally can have fresh bread by using what is my mom's bread machine and putting a mix in. And in 4 hours, we have wonderful fresh bread. So I'm just thinking about it differently based on what you're saying. Our support network doesn't always have to be people, but it can be things that make our lives easier.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. That just broadened the aperture for me about how I can think and talk about, and having a support network is like essential. It
Yes.
is the first thing we need. We're not we're not designed to do this hard life stuff alone.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a great way to end this conversation with that very important piece of advice. Thank you.
And I loved your example. Yeah. So I know that there are so many, even single moms or partners that, their hours vary and it's hard for them to get that support just in the home. And so, yeah, that's not only, surrounding yourself with that village wherever you can, but
Yeah.
yeah, just doing the things that can help support you in whatever way. Yeah.
And being creative about how we think about it,
Yeah.
right? Just thinking about it differently. Thank you so much, Catherine, for bringing your perspective about um, mom guilt and self-care and surrounding ourselves with a village, getting out of survival mode into so that we can thrive. That's one of my favorite words.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would love to have you just kind of wrap this up in a bow for us and share some of your maybe your top three tips or takeaways that you can leave us with today.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's been an honor, and thank you for holding this space for these topics. Like I've just loved this
Oh,
conversation. Yeah, I
thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
thank you. But yeah, if you're listening to this and you just want to take away a couple of things, I would say give yourself so much grace. We are all human. There isn't anyone who's perfect and has everything figured out. We are all navigating the messiness of life together. Um, and yeah, where can you start to just create that connection with yourself? Where are the little moments where you can just pause and check in? And you start to create this relationship with yourself. And that's the essence of self care. And like Maria was saying, like those little drops, filling that beautiful teacup with those little drops, how can you how can you sprinkle that throughout your day, because you create this life that's infused with self-care and it just becomes how you live. And as we were talking about, you teach people how to treat you. So as you do this for yourself, you're setting this way up for people to interact with you. You're very clear on what your values are and you put those, you prioritize those, and then that flows into all aspects of your life. And I want to leave you with this reminder that you're doing better than you might think, than you realize. You are right where you need to be on your journey. And I want you to know that you are so, so loved.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to wrap it. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for being here. I love your energy. You're a calm force in the sometimes chaotic waters of life, and I appreciate what you do for moms and working moms. Thank you very much for being here and for sharing your your perspective on life and what it is to deal with some of the messy things that we have to deal with, like guilt and shame. So I know that there are going to be some people who are watching or listening that will want to connect with you. So, what is the one best way that they can do that?
I would say meet me over on my website, which is soulcaremom.com. Um, there's lots of amazing resources there. There's free gifts for you there. Go check it out. Yeah.
Fabulous. Again, Catherine, thanks so much.
Thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure.
All mine. Thank you. And for those of you watching and listening, I really do thank you for being a part of this community. So if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, click a star, and let us know. Creating and sharing resources for women is one of my favorite things to do. And another favorite thing is being a career and life coach for women navigating challenging times and helping them get unstuck from their rut. So if something in this episode resonates with you and you'd like a fresh perspective, reach out. Let's have a conversation. The links to connect with us are in the show notes below. And then let's meet again here next Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time for another inspiring conversation. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. I feel that in my bones. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.